Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel for another weekly Payday 3 news update. If it's not welcome back, as always, please feel free to click the subscribe button to stay up to date with all future Payday 3 content and other stuff I've been cooking at the minute, thanks to everyone who watched my Sonic 3 review earlier this week. Certainly very different for me, and I really appreciate everyone who did check it out. If you haven't already, please do give it a look. I'd really appreciate it. I put a lot of effort into talking about the film, and there is a non-spoiler section if you want to hear my thoughts without spoilers, but to anyone who watched it, thank you. But today, we're talking about Payday 3's two dev blogs I haven't discussed. One that came out towards the end or middle of last month that I just didn't talk about because I really was not in the headspace to be talking about it. I kind of was a bit drained with Payday by the time it came out. And then this one that's just come out today while I was about to get ready to talk about that last blog, which is an update that unfortunately confirms that this whole weekly Payday 3 news thing where I'd share the details on blogs is going to be over as of today, because blogs are still coming, but they're not weekly anymore, which means there's no promise as to the cadence of them going forward. So what I'll do is I'll read this blog first, because this is the newest stuff, and cover that, and then we'll go back and just talk over Overskills very briefly, so you've got my thoughts on it, because I hope by now most of you already know about it. If you don't, you're waiting for my thoughts. Sorry I kept you waiting so long. I won't do that again, promise. But either way, let's get into this and have a look through each of the blogs. So, it is a message written from Almir, one of the ongoing interim game directors for Payday 3. Last year was a challenging year for Payday 3, and he talks about some of the things they've done with Operation Medic Bag, so progression, free paid heists, new characters, all that stuff. This year is going to be an exciting one for Payday 3 with more heists, characters, and features to be released. While I can't reveal who the next character is just yet, does he need to at this point? I can tell you that my most anticipated feature for this quarter is Armor 2.0, and I think it's going to be a game changer, which locks in Armor 2.0, releasing hopefully by the end of March. Which makes sense. We know we're not going to get an update this month because Starbreeze just don't tend to do a lot in January, so I'm expecting more from them in February or maybe March. Who knows? We'll see which one Armor 2.0 finds itself in. But now that Andreas, myself, and the Payday 3 team are back in action, we're making some efforts to tighten up our workflow with the goal of nailing down what worked and what didn't last year. But one thing they want to touch on in this blog is the blogs themselves, and they talk about how they introduced this blog system as a part of Operation Medic Bag to give you weekly updates on where things were up to. They quickly ran into issues though, as the promise of weekly blogs ended up doing more harm than good at times, because it turned out there wasn't necessarily something interesting and relevant to say every week, which created frustration in the community where you felt we weren't taking the blogs seriously or that whatever they were about was lacking. I think that's a shame that that's how they've received it. I mean, that honestly depends on what the overall consensus was within Payday fans. I mean, for me personally, when there was a weaker week, like, oh, we've interviewed this person just to give you a bit more of an insight or something like that, or we haven't really got much to talk about other than soundtracks on Spotify, I personally really understood that, because coming up with something every week can be a bit challenging, but I think having that weekly cadence really did help. It allowed you to have something to talk about with Payday 3 every week, even if it was just, oh, they did the blog, there isn't much to talk about. It was still something to talk about. So I'm sad that the consensus they seem to have pulled is that when they did a blog that wasn't very strong, people just gave them a lot of hell for it. I hope that they didn't, but if they're writing it here, maybe they did from some people, who knows. But on that note, as a result, they will move away from the weekly cadence to writing blogs until they have something meaningful to share that we, based on your feedback from last year, know you want to learn more about. It'll make sure that whenever there is a new blog post, you'll know that it's something about a new update or something important about the game and not just fluff unrelated to the future of the game. This will help our team be able to deliver better blogs while freeing up time for us to focus more on the game and the improvements we're making. We like the format of blogs as a way of sharing information, and we want to keep doing them, but it took the joy out of it when we wrote something that was poorly received. That I can completely understand. They will continue to be as open and transparent as they can, doing weekly streams with Almir and Hathe, sharing information when we can, and Payday Twitter Man will continue being Payday Twitter Man, however you feel about that, as we all prepare the cool stuff we've got in the pipeline. Okay, I'm of two minds about this. Like I said, I think it was really good that we got the weekly cadence for Payday blogs, and if I had my way, I would say to keep those up, even if it was, not quite strong in some weeks. Problem is, I know I sound like a broken record at this point, but in case people are watching and don't know, which at this point, if you don't know, I would genuinely be shocked, we know that Payday 3 in year 2 has a significantly lower amount of investment funding-wise, as well as a smaller dev team. They say they're committed to making the same level of content consistently, all that stuff that we had in 2024, but as a lot of us have said, that's going to be very hard to upkeep if you have less budget and also less staff. It's just going to be a Herculean effort for Starbreeze to get over, and this year is very much unproven ground for them as a studio because they've got new parameters with this reduced team and funding as to what they can put out over the next year. And so if in 2024 we had these odd weeks where it was like an interview or just soundtracks out now, and these were perceived as mid or bad blogs that clearly Starbreeze got a lot of criticism for in some places from people, then who's to say this year, with them having, again, the less funding, the smaller staff, there's fewer updates going to be most likely happening in 2025, that we're not going to get a lot more of what people will perceive as mid or bad blogs. As a result, maybe they're thinking internally as a studio, if about half the blogs we're going to have coming out, or more maybe, who knows, are going to be the ones that don't really talk about much, what's the point in doing them weekly? I fully understand it. I think it's a shame because, like I said, having that constant weekly blog is good for keeping the game fresh in people's minds and just having something to talk about, good or bad. but definitely considering the overall context here and thinking about what they actually are going to be able to talk about and share that isn't repetitious or boring to some people, it's probably better to go into the more event piece style nature of a blog and just putting out a blog when they need to. Obviously, you've got the question then of what's the point of doing them if you do dev updates anyway, because dev updates were roughly every month anyway, and they'd show it was coming in updates either way. My hope is that when they say they're reducing the frequency of these blogs, it's every 2 or every 3 weeks. So in other words, still more often than a dev update. It does make me laugh slightly that I said at the start of this year that despite me making a bit of a move to doing non-Payday content as well as Payday, I'd keep doing weekly Payday videos, and a few of you did comment saying, how are you going to do weekly videos for Payday 3? There's not going to be enough news. And I did say, well, that depends on Starbreeze. If there are weeks where they don't say anything, I'm not going to have anything to talk about. Yikes! It seems like some Fridays I'm not going to have Payday 3 things to talk about. So we'll see. Maybe I'll have to come up with some other Payday ideas, or genuinely, if there's not much to talk about, I just won't do Payday some weeks. That'll just be the cut and dry nature of it. Will I do a non-Payday video instead of a Payday one? I don't know. I really don't know. I'll just have to see how I feel about that. But I do want to keep reporting the Payday stuff. It just feels that we're going to have less to go on going in the new year. It's a shame that there's going to be a bigger gap in between hearing things about Payday, but hopefully when they do talk about things, it's things worth talking about. So, you know, it could go either way. As always, I will continue to say, though, saying that they're going to do weekly streams, sharing information when we can, this information needs to be shared on other platforms. I've said this internally to them. I've said it publicly in videos. They can't tease things on streams that don't then also get shared elsewhere. I know some people pick them up and put them on Reddit. I know I used to watch the streams and take notes, but not everyone has the time or interest, frankly, to watch the devs play Payday 3 several times a week on the off chance that one tidbit of news will be shared. So as long as when people are streaming, someone at Starbreeze can just take a note watching the stream, someone moderating maybe, and just go, they mentioned this, they mentioned that, they mentioned this, and just put a thing out saying, we talked a little bit about this today, feel free to watch the stream for more. That'd be fine. I just think consistency of communication across platforms is important, and doing something like that would really help ensure it, especially now that blogs are going to be less frequent. I definitely think that's a good idea. Make sure it's consistent across all platforms. Very, very important thing to keeping the community informed, especially when you're trying to build it back up and it isn't as strong as it definitely could be. But either way, that's everything on today's blog. So let's just go back over the Overskills one, just so I've covered the ground and you're aware of what the system is, if you were waiting on me to talk about it, which again, sorry about that. This was blog number 38 that came out in the middle of December last year, and it just gives you a bit of an insight into the Overskill system, something coming to Payday 3 this year. They talk about expanding the overkill weapon mechanic, they allow an auxiliary skill system for build customization, and also allow alternatives to overkill weapons that are similar to ultimates, something like Overwatch, or maybe Marvel Rivals is the better comparison now with how well that game's doing. Now the Overskill system, I will say, is something we've seen internally as Starbreeze partners, and this blog doesn't share as much as I thought they might have done, because there's definitely more information they could show. Mainly because, as you can see here, with the Overskills layout for the HET5 Red Fox, you can see there's 5 different upgrades to it to make it a better overkill weapon, but you don't see any of those in this blog, and you can obviously assume based on that a similar style is included for each of the other overkill weapons, as well as this new device called the Interceptor. There's definitely more information they can share here, and like I said, we've seen some of it internally, so I won't go much into obviously what's been said internally, because NDA is going to NDA, but I will say that I've been intrigued by seeing this system come out, and I'm glad that they're sharing a bit of information. Looking forward to them sharing more of it though, because as you can tell, it's a little bit like a perk deck system in Payday 2, not completely like that, but it gives you maybe that bit of an itch that you're waiting for with that system, maybe. I don't really remember a lot of the stuff they shared internally, and I've done that intentionally because I forget things sometimes, but I gave them feedback when they asked us at the time, and I've kind of pushed it out the back of my mind, which is nice because I can kind of be surprised by it when they do reshare it. But they said they're going to be 4 overskill lines available to Payday 3 players for free, tied to each of the overkill weapons, as well as I've said, this new device called the Interceptor, which is designed for stealth gameplay specifically. Each weapon's overskill lines will unlock at the same time as the weapon itself is unlocked, and the stealth ability will be immediately available to any player. The upgrades within each overskill line are unlocked like regular skill upgrades by earning experience while having the overskill equipped. However, in an overskill line, all upgrades will be active at the same time, kind of like perk decks in Payday 2. So you have to have the overskill equipped, that particular chain, to be earning progress towards it, like building up XP for different skill lines in the main skill system. But apart from that, you'll get all the upgrades at the same time. You have to pick which one, you'll get all 5. So once you've got to the end of the bar for the Red Fox, you'll have all 5 of those upgrades. They then give you a bit more detail in how the different types of overskill systems will work. So the main one, the most common one, being the weapon. So when you have a particular weapons overskill system active, that will apply to when you're holding that overkill weapon, whether it's the one that you have or another one. So if you have overskills equipped for the grenade launcher and you pick someone else's up, you'll still get the skills applied to that one, because as long as you're holding that weapon in your hands with the skills equipped, the skills will apply. If you choose to go with an ability instead of a weapon, you'll have to activate the ability in the same way you would otherwise summon an overkill weapon. So for example, the stealth overskill line will let you temporarily disable all cameras in the heist. So that's what this interceptor is designed to do. And then it will no doubt have 5 upgrades to make that stronger. And you'll see when it's actually properly revealed. But either way, you've got the idea there. Either it'll be a weapon boost or it'll be an ability that takes the place of a weapon that could come in handy in a certain playthrough. And I think that's handy because you're not going to use the overkill weapons in stealth anyway, so having something designed for stealth is a smart call. It adds something new without replacing something you were already using, especially as a stealth player. But you do get a bit of an example of something here with the grenade launcher, which is these cluster grenades. When they fire a grenade, it splits off into multiple other grenades, showing you one of the upgrades that you can have with this grenade launcher. So as you can see in the GIF, it explodes, and then 4 more grenades pop out, which also explode. So that gives you a bit more of an insight as to something that could happen with the Mamba's overskill line. This does also mean they're going to make some changes to the overkill meter, which reckons they can see in the process, which I don't know if you can see, but either way, picking up loose cash will now grant you the meter. At least it has more practicality, because as I keep saying, it's not worth anything financial-wise. And overkill weapons will no longer grant the meter, which kind of makes sense. You know, using overkill weapons to gain overkill points. I mean, with the minigun, you could build it up quite easily, so I don't blame them for nerfing that. It's whatever. And then they reconfirm that's coming to Payday 3 in Year 2, alongside the skill rework, Armor 2.0, and so much more. What is that much more? We'll find out. As I've said, very much on unproven ground, so much more could be a character, a heist, and a weapon. Could be 2 characters, 2 heists, 2 weapons. We don't know. It's very much an intriguing time for Payday 3 because we don't know the level of which the commitment's going to be from Starbreeze, because we don't know how much they can do. We know they have a smaller team and smaller budget, so how much are they going to put out there? We don't know. They're going to try their best. I have faith in developers. They'll do whatever they can, but it's very much going to be an interesting 12 months. How are they going to do things going into Year 2? Well, we're already in Year 2, technically, but we'll just have to wait and see. But either way, that's a full catch-up on everything you need to know about the Payday 3 news this week. So as I've said, no longer weekly blogs. They will just come out whenever they're ready, and we're going to get an overskill system sometime in this year. No real window given, just that it's coming this year, but hopefully we'll see the system soon so we can actually get our hands on it and talk about it in a bit more detail, or at least have them showcase it in a dev update. But either way, thank you all very much for watching. I greatly appreciate you all watching. As always, if you have enjoyed the video, please do click subscribe to let me know you'd like to see more content, and click the like button to help get the video out in the algorithm to more Payday 3 fans. Leave a comment down below. What do you think about them not doing weekly blogs anymore? What do you think about Overskills? I know it's a bit of a late question, but I'd still like to know your thoughts. It's another system that I think is an interesting addition to Payday 3. Another one of those quality of life things where the more cool things you add in to improve the game or add more systems, the more you're going to feel as a returning player that a lot's changed. I think that's nice. The job now Starbreeze have got to do, obviously, is bring back those returning players, because it's all well and good having these new features, but if people don't come back, what's the point? I don't envy them, but I wish them the best, and I hope to see some really good progress made across 2025. I'll see you all next week with some more content. As always, a non-Payday video on Tuesdays, roughly. I mean, it may change depending on the week if I'm working on something that takes longer, and hopefully a Payday 3 video on the Friday. Although, as I've said now, if I don't upload Payday 3 videos on some Fridays, don't be surprised, because I won't have ideas every week. This game hasn't got enough going on for it for that, unfortunately. I wish it did. But remember, you can always check me out on Twitch at twitch.tv/RedArcherLive, and I'll often play Payday 3 on there roughly once a week, so you can check out a bit more Payday from me there, no matter what happens. I will try and multi-stream that on YouTube, though, whenever I do. Either way, I'll see you all very soon with some new videos. Look after yourselves, stay safe, take care, and have a good weekend. Thanks for watching.